All right, cool. All right, so William Lee here. This is the interview project for Dr. Green's SpEd 6030. I have with me Dr. Reigard. He is a special education teacher here at Clark Central High School.
I'm actually not a doctor, but I'm flattered that you
did I say doctor?
I'm hopefully going to be in a PhD program starting next summer,
okay.
So potential doctor. But yeah.
I'm just getting ready for
it. Sorry, man.
Pulling the term out early.
That's right.
So we've got a few questions here to run through with you. First one is if you could tell me about some of your duties as a SpEd teacher, including like the major duties,
sure.
Some of the curriculum that you might be responsible for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This year I do predominantly all collaborative instruction with 9th grade and 12th grade students. As a special ed teacher, you have to kind of be a little flexible. Sometimes they'll change what you've done. Last year I only worked with sophomores. And the main duty that I have is curriculum modification and support for students with IEPs. I am responsible for reading their IEPs, knowing them inside and out, knowing what kind of segments and services kids need, what accommodations and modifications need to be made to instruction for them, and then basically providing them with those supports as necessary. Some classes, some teachers are very open to collaboration. Others might have certain ways and that they like to do things, and it's a little more difficult to get some wiggle room to kind of add your own personal touch to things, but that's life. So
yeah, I can understand
flexibility.
That. Right. So since you're talking about IEPs, how many students with IEPs are you currently responsible for?
I have 10 students that I'm responsible for, and they're all, let's see, I have one junior, one freshman, and then the rest are sophomores, and there's 10 total, so yeah.
It's a lot of moving around.
It is, yeah.
Do you know, can you describe some of the disabilities that they have?
Sure. The most common one that I'm used to dealing with here is specific learning disability, or SLD. A lot of times when you have a student who scores within the average range on a Woodcock-Johnson 3, which is a test of intelligence that is given by, I think that they still use that in the district, the school psychologist, when they're doing a psychological eval. And then so a student who's in the average range but has a significant weakness in phonological processing, or maybe it's computation, math sense, something like that, numbers, reasoning. So that's what I see the most. Also, you see MID, which are students that are kind of like below a 70, like on their IQ. So they're a little bit lower, a little bit slower learners for obvious reasons, and you have to spend more time making modifications and just giving them the time basically to get stuff turned in. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So it gets very specific down there to the details, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
I see. Okay. So do you work directly with SpEd students in all your general?
I do,
classes?
yes.
Yeah. And do you work with any of the general ed students too?
I do. I mean, I try not. I know there's collaborative instruction looks very different. I think there's 4 different models that the Clark County wants us to use when we're working in a collaborative setting. There is sort of one teach, and one kind of like monitor, or if my gen ed teacher is up teaching, I'm responsible for kind of just floating around the room. That's really when I get the chance to work the most with gen ed students. I also like to be in that position too. I mean, I can't help it, control freak or whatever, but I also like to guide instruction. Sometimes you do small group pull out, other things like that. I think I'm missing one of the models, but I think that I try and do get as much interaction in with the gen ed students as I can when I'm in a collab setting. I just, it makes it less, the students with special needs that have IEPs, it makes them less self-conscious. So if I was to hover around their desks 24/7, and then people would clearly, be like, oh, there goes Mr. Reigard to help, slow kids or something like that, which I really do not want that label foisted on anyone, even if it is someone with an IQ in the 50s. Just give them a chance to be one of the class. So
yeah, absolutely. I say observing your classroom, I could not pick out which students were.
That's good.
Your special needs, which ones were not.
Cool.
So that's cool. So what type of technology do you use to help them, assistive technology?
Right now, Google's been great. And I'm pretty. I'm a newbie with with Google Classroom and things like that. I think Google Classroom is nice because a lot of students have issues with organization, not just kids with IEPs, but other gen ed kids in the collab setting. So that's helpful for them to have a resource that they can return to repeatedly to see, you know, oh, I haven't turned this in, or oh, that assignment is late, or this is coming up. Also, Google Read and Write, I think it is a great one that has been really helpful for some of my lower kids with special needs that are reading at like, you know, elementary grade levels. I think we have like, you know, a couple that read at 3rd or 4th grade level, and they're freshmen this year. It will read any text for you like off the internet. If you can find a PDF of a book, throw that up there. You can adjust, you know, like the volume, pitch, you know, male voice, female voice, you know, like things like the speed. Cool. Yeah, and it is helpful. I've just started using that a little bit with some kids in my senior class. I haven't started it with freshmen yet, but hopefully I will. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Google's come a long way.
Yes, yeah. We used to use these 2 programs at the elementary level where I taught for 9 years called Solo and Co-Writer, and they basically, Co-Writer was a cool program that I think could be used with high schoolers, where it has like word prediction software. So like if you start typing like, you know, the word vacation, and you can like, you know, phonetically, you know that the first 3 phonemes that you're going to hear are VAC. It'll give you like a word bank will pop up on your screen, and it's like, is this the word that you want? And they can click that. So it's helpful for spelling. I mean, it's helpful for them, you know, to kind of get over writer's block, you know. But yeah, good program. So
neat.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the most difficult part of your job?
This year it's been difficult because I have 4 collaborative teachers, each with their own style. It's not always like that. Last year I only had 2, and so I am having to kind of jump around a little bit and get used to, you know, what teachers' expectations are as far as my role in here. I've always seen myself as a support person, and I like to think of myself as easygoing, and I want to be helpful to them in any way I can. Sometimes communication is difficult. I feel like earlier on in the year I was really like, you know, upfront with like, I'm here for you, you know, come see me when you need something. I made these spreadsheets for each class that kind of listed the students, listed their accommodations, like talked about like, you know, what their needs were. I shared those, they were read, everything was hunky-dory. Now I think, you know, we're sort of feeling a time crunch a little bit, and I know that, you know, like we have a guideline, a framework, instructional framework in 9th grade that we have to get through, and I think that sometimes just everyone focusing on that, you know, like you sort of, then you have to kind of keep the gears turning and keep moving forward towards your goals, your ultimate goals of like, you know, when to start the next unit and such. And then as a byproduct of that, some things get ignored. Not you know, like they're doing it on purpose, but it's just kind of, it's the way things are. I mean, you know, I'm here to teach certain things, you know, within a certain time frame, and there's always a lot of stuff going on. There's always behaviors that have to be dealt with. There's always, you know, lesson plans that need to be submitted, and across 4 classes with, across 2 grade levels with 4 collaborative teachers, it gets a little tricky. Like,
I imagine.
Contact is difficult, but yeah, I don't know. Like I know that some special ed teachers are collabing with like 1 grade level, and like have like, you know, 2 teachers that are responsible for. I don't know if anyone else has more than 4 this year at Central. I might have the most, but like there might be someone that has the same number that I do.
Yeah. So like, how does administration like help you with your role?
They're pretty open with things. Like if I have an issue with a student or something, I usually go to the special ed team leader, and she's in a purely administrative role this year. Because of the volume of special ed kids that we have, and you know, she has to go to like manifestation meetings where like, you know, kids are breaking school rules, and she has to go consider whether or not the breaking of the rule was actually a result of the kid's disability, which in most cases, well, I'm not getting into that right now, but like they are very supportive of me, and I feel that the last school I was at, which I'm not going to name, I had a difficult time with the administration being responsive with me and my issues. Here, no problem. I mean, they're very aware of you and what you need and what you want. So.
Very cool. So, like, when you're dealing with some of your kids, do you like, what kind of like disciplinary issues come up?
A lot of like, you know, fresh talk, like smart mouths. I've never been threatened. You know, I know some teachers that have. That's pretty much the big thing. It's just, I try and my collab teachers, I don't want to speak for them too, but like, that is probably like the first like chunk of our class, like when you first come in, the first like 10-15 minutes are chaotic because kids are coming in out of the hall, some are late, some are tardy, what have you. That is getting everyone settled and get everyone willing to work with their cell phones away and stuff. I mean, once we can kind of like get past that, things flow a little more smoothly. But that's always every class that I'm in, and it was like that last year. It was like that even before years past when I taught high school in Massachusetts, where I'm originally from. It's just like that first transitional period is always a little rough to get around.
Yeah.
So.
How does that affect like the way that you deliver like the IEPs to students?
I think that like during that period, I might be a little bit more aware of what the students with IEPs are doing and like kind of try and get them on task, because I know if I have a student in here, for example, who has a low IQ, who's reading several grade levels below, who's getting distractions, like 360 degrees, like all around her or him, I know that I need to get them down to it, and then I'm sure that questions are going to arise later, so I try and like circulate and ask them when something is passed out, like let's look at this together. Is there something that you're not understanding here? And so pretty much, I would just say that, like from an IEP, like looking at an IEP. There isn't a specific accommodation that says for the first 10 minutes of class you will like be with the student and like help them transition into like the mini lesson. You will help them like get started on the work session. But I feel like that's almost like a no-brainer for a special education teacher. Like you need to be there when they're transitioning into the classroom and when they're transitioning between activities. So.
Right. Do you have any like supplementary support services that you collaborate with, like speech therapists or anything?
I do. I think it's less common at high school level to see kids that have heavy speech services coming from elementary background. I had students that would get speech like 4 times a week, like every day they'd be pulled to a direct setting for like 30 minutes. Here, it's less common. You see it maybe a couple times a month if they get it, maybe once a week for the kids that have more pronounced. But I feel like a lot of times families have done, by the time a student is like 14, 15 years old and a speech disability has been identified, like let's say when they're 5 or 6, they've already been receiving like 9, 10 years of speech therapy in a separate setting. It's all speech services that I'm aware of in Clark County within the schools are done in a separate classroom. So I think that by this time it's really not as much of a pressing issue, but I don't know.
All right, so I got one last question for you.
All right, lay it on me.
Gone through all this stuff, but what do you think is the most enjoyable part of being a special education teacher?
When a student gets it, and like, there's a lot of different, and I know that sounds cliche, and there's a lot of different ways the student can get it, but literally it can be any assignment the student is working on. For me, in like engagement with a text, because I'm an English collab teacher, and when a student who's been like bad mouthing a book that you're reading in class or saying, oh, this is boring, or whatever, when you look over and you see the student during downtime take the book out and start flipping through it and like reading it, or even when a student is being like a self-starter, when you don't need to get onto a student about work completion, and which shows to me that they have more confidence in themselves, and I'll kind of like walk over by their desk and be like, you need help, and they're like, no, I got this, I'm on this. I'm just like that feels really good, like to know that, because the diploma, the paper, when they turn 18, after 4 years of high school, that's the main goal, and you want them to enjoy their education, and you also want to give them skills that they can carry with them, another cliche, throughout life. But it's true. I mean, like, they're gonna have to apply for jobs someday. They're gonna have to be hopefully somewhat well spoken. They'll have to learn some basic writing skills, basic math skills. And we can't just it's all the kids need that attention. Like, and especially special ed students, obviously they need more attention. So I'm the attention giver. That's fine. I'll try it.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, man. All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Great,
all right.
Great
cool.
information.
Fantastic.